Hey guys, Coach Castle here, and I'm getting really busy and I'm getting pressed for time, but I want to keep making videos for you guys, so here's another episode of Castle's Corner for you. Today we're going to talk about biomechanics, about the stuff that's really important you understand if you're exercising. It's basically exactly how exercise works. So first thing we got to do is we have to get out of this thinking that old school is the best way, and that even the new gadgets and gizmos will somehow revolutionize your training. We need to break down anatomical motion in physics, neurology, and understand what makes an exercise good and what makes an exercise compromised. Then, choose wisely. Lifting a lot of weight in a compound movement does not automatically mean that each participating muscle is working to its maximum capacity. Doing isolation exercises does mean that each exercise is getting the maximum benefit, the maximum efficiency. So, because you're getting more magnification when you use a maximally effective lever, and a maximally effective range of motion is more effective. So, basically, if you are exercising without understanding how exercise works, it's the equivalent to a child trying to carefully fill a tall and narrow vase with water, using a large, heavy bucket far too large for the task. As the child attempts to fill the vase, most of the water from the bucket will go basically everywhere but inside of the vase, obviously. And regrettably, this is how most people, yes, including you watching this video, approach training. And no, I don't care who you are. Will the vase eventually be filled? Yes, but at what cost? In this case, the cost would be about 80% too much water than was needed, possibly a broken vase or a damaged child. So this would be the example of a heavy compound exercise. Squat, deadlift, bench press, overhead press. Basically, when you're trying to squat a whole lot of weight, you're doing that to build muscle, but you're being forced to use the heavy weight because you're not using effective mechanics. It is foolish to load your skeleton, your spine, more than you need to just to get enough muscle loading to the muscle growth where you want it to, your quads and hamstrings. So, let's stop obsessing about how much we can squat, how much we can deadlift and overhead press and bench press, and these things are done by people who are either ignorant or completely ego-driven to the point of the destruction of their own bodies. Foolish things that we should not be concerning ourselves with. Let's start training intelligently. I talk about it all the time. You have Google. You have all the information on your phone. You just have to Google biomechanics and an anatomy chart. It's right there. Let's start thinking about how much load each participating muscle gets when we work it, and what lever we're using. We want to make sure that by the time we get to 60 years old, we aren't crippled, having spinal fusions, we aren't having hip replacements, we aren't having knee replacements, we aren't having shoulder replacements and cartilage, and just everything. I see a lot of these old school bodybuilders, and they think, well, that's just the price you pay. No, that's the price you pay if you're an ignorant idiot. If you're a dumbass who just listens to bro science. When you do exercises that are not precise, then when you do exercises that require way more weight than is actually needed to get the benefit, you're damaging and distorting your joints. There's better, smarter ways to develop your physique using only isolation exercises. Don't be like a child. Take a minute. Learn how to exercise correctly. A lot of you people watching this video, you guys have been exercising for years even. Possibly you've been exercising on and off for years. But don't be like the kid. Take a minute, get a new container like a water pitcher and a controlled amount of water, and use only as much as needed. Therefore, using a maximally effective lever with a maximally effective weight load, using only the muscles, not putting strain on your body and distorting your joints. Therefore, no mistakes, no accidents, and no injuries. I don't get injuries from training. None of my clients get injury from training. Nobody gets hurt training with me. We train far more intense and for far shorter periods of times than most of you watching this video. Most of you watching this video have no idea what proper form or intensity in that proper form is. It's not the video to talk about that, but just think and train like an adult, not like a child. I learned a long time ago that it's not wise to use these exercises that create so much skeletal strain and do not give you more muscle growth. Quite the contrary. You actually work backwards. Again, remember, giant bucket, small vase. All of that extra energy expenditure all over the floor. So you could train smart, get where you want to go, 2 or 3 years, or you can train like an ignorant child, do what bro science says, squats, deadlift, bench press, all these things, damage your body. You only get one, by the way, and you can't fix it. You can repair it, but you can't like repair your bone and shit. So just, you only get the one body. Learn how to train correctly. Training using science is the best way to eliminate systemic fatigue and improve your recovery between workouts. Not just between your sets, but I mean like between the time that you're training. Could be whatever, 23 hours, 48 hours. Protect your joints, protect your spine. Don't get sick. You don't get tired of working out. You don't get sick and tired of working out. You don't feel like you get hit by a truck every time you do a heavy squat and deadlift day. You can't walk and you can't sit down in the toilet for a week. Believe me, I know. I used to do these stupid things. I mean, okay, I'll give you an example. As an example of other stupid things that people do, that I'm sure most of you have heard, the push-pull method. Oh, everybody knows the push-pull method, I know. A lot of bodybuilders talk about the push-pull method, grouping their body parts this way. So, just for those of you who don't know, an example of the push-pull method would be a tricep exercise would be considered a push, and a chest would also be considered a push. So they would combine these two pushing movements into one workout. Let's say curls and rowing, those would be pulling exercises. And they would call those pulling. They would do those together. So push and pull, they would do those 2 sets together. But if you think about it, this makes no frickin' sense. So all muscles pull. No muscles push. There's no such thing as a muscle that pushes. So let's just say I'm going to do a flat bench press. We would typically think of this as a pressing, a pushing movement. You're pushing the weight away from you. But the only reason that we think of it as a pushing movement is because the bar with the weight is moving forward in a pattern of forward motion. The weight is in front of my elbow, driving away from my body, from my torso. But think about this. What if you had no hand and no forearm at all, and you only had your humerus, or your upper arm, sorry, and you could somehow attach a cable right at the end of your upper arm, where your elbow is now. Then connect that cable to a pulley on the floor, and your torso is still laying on the flat bench. Now, that same upper arm movement would be called pulling, because now it appears you are pulling the weight from the floor. But that's now just because the weight's in front of you, behind you, not in front of you, rather. You would say that you're pulling the weight up from the floor. The pectoral muscle is contracting and it's pulling the insertion towards the origin. All muscles pull towards the origin. So, at the muscle origin, when it contracts, that muscle fiber is going to pull that limb directly towards the muscle origin. That's what a contraction is, by the way. So if you think about your muscles like ropes, let's say that your bicep attaches up on your shoulder, and then the second attachment is obviously on your forearm about 2 inches below your elbow. Think of that as a rope, like hundreds of little ropes. Now, when you flex your bicep to show somebody off, you show it to a girl or whatever, and you're contracting it, making a ball of those rope muscle fibers. They're literally being scrunched up together. They're contracting, or they're pulling. This is also true with the example of the lying on the flat bench. Your chest is contracting, getting bigger. It's literally balling up the ropes inside. It's pulling. Now, it doesn't matter if your forearm is attached or not. The movement is the same and the levers are the same. Simply by removing the forearm and the hand, you remove the secondary lever and the third lever. That's all. So, this is the first clue that we have that tells us the right anatomical direction for each muscle, or the origin and the insertion. Now, all skeletal muscles cross one or more joints. They have to. The point of the muscle is to connect two levers. So, as an example, the bicep, it crosses the elbow joint and it connects to the forearm bone. It also crosses the shoulder joint. Those are the two places it connects. So, that means that the bicep is involved in two functions. Not just one, all muscles cross more than one joint. They always have a primary function and a secondary function. The biceps of the arm, its primary function is elbow flexion. So to bend the arm, a bicep curl, it's flexing, it's bending the arm. It's raising the arm, the secondary lever. That is its primary function. Its secondary and lesser function is flexing the shoulder joint, or moving the shoulder joint, but you wouldn't train it that way. Obviously, this applies to all primary muscles. Now, I'm obviously not counting the fingers, the toes, the neck, and things like that. But these are the primary joints that we concern ourselves with when we're doing bodybuilding or strength training, or unless we're doing physical therapy. You might do finger stuff and the neck and things like that when we're doing a standard fitness program, if you're a rock climber, physical therapy. But right now, we're only worried about the main 8 joints. Now, we know there are things called muscle origins, and there are things called muscle insertions. Now, you might have not heard of these, but it doesn't matter too much. It's basically just where the muscle attaches to your bones. Now that we know that, you should be wondering why some are called origin and why some are called the insertion. Well, the reason is simple. It's because when determining what to call what, it was established which one was more mobile and which one was more stable. So obviously, the muscles don't care in which direction they pull, but they all do pull from the origin to the insertion evenly. There is no such thing as working out one end of a muscle or not the other end, or emphasizing one end or not the other end more. I'll give you a great example. Again, the bicep. I can't tell you how many videos I've seen, articles I've read about training the peak of your bicep to get a larger peak. It's so stupid. You can't do that. You genetically have a high insertion or you genetically have a low insertion. There's no such thing as an exercise that will train a particular part of your muscle. Again, this is just bro science. It's not real. Now, that's the first problem with the idea of the push-pull method. The second problem is that the push-pull method is based partly on this fucking ridiculous idea that if you're doing your chest, you're also already engaging your tricep. So, since you're already working your tricep and they're already fatigued, you might as well finish them off by doing more tricep exercises. This same idiocy is applied with both the back and the bicep and everything else that the push-pull method basically talks about. If I'm doing my back muscles, I'm already engaging my biceps, so I might as well finish them off. Well, there's all kinds of things wrong with that logic. First of all, if you are doing your chest correctly, you're not going to be using your biceps. You're not going to be using your triceps. Okay, so let me give you a ridiculous example here. So let's just say I'm doing a dumbbell bench press again, because everybody knows what that looks like. Don't do it, by the way. It's a ridiculous exercise. But if I am doing a flat dumbbell bench press, as long as my forearm stays vertical throughout the movement, or parallel with gravity. So if you would imagine gravity as invisible lines going straight down, basically, just everywhere, then when you're doing your dumbbell bench press, and it's a flat bench, as long as your forearm stays parallel with those invisible lines, you will have absolutely no engagement with your bicep or your tricep. Neither the bicep nor the tricep will actually be working because my body doesn't need to be controlling a neutral lever. If the neutral lever or forearm is unloaded, it's parallel with gravity. So, I then have to bring that lever to either the inside or the outside to engage the biceps or the triceps. So it's very simple. If I'm bringing it outside, I'm engaging my biceps. Why is that? It's because as I open it up and it goes out, as you can clearly see, the bicep is now taking some load. It's being tensed. So when you're doing a chest fly, for example, you have an extremely long lever. It's your upper arm and your lower arm. As you're doing the fly, you now have a double-sized lever. Your bicep is being forced to work. Well, it's actually working in a very ineffective way because it's being isolated while under great strain and stretch. We'll get to that another time, but it's not a good movement. But you'll notice you can only probably do, a fifth of the weight that you would do with the bench press when you do your flies. And that's because you're doubling your lever and it's just the position it's in. So, and I'll hear, well, yeah, but I really like the bench press because it really grows my triceps too. Well, if you bring your arm to the inside, obviously you're working your tricep because it's now being forced to hold it in this position. As you know, the tricep is on the bottom of your arm. Holding the camera can't show you, sorry, but you know what I'm talking about. So, close grip bench would be a good example. If you're doing close grip bench, you'll be definitely working your triceps. However, again, you'll be working them with a very, very poor range of motion. So you'll basically be exhausting and fatiguing your triceps in a very ineffective way, and then you're going to go do some more tricep training on top of it when they're already fatigued. So, you've already engaged your triceps because you were bench pressing, which is not a good chest developed movement. It's also not a good tricep movement. Now that your tris are already fatigued, is it really wise to work them out when they're fatigued? Wouldn't it be more productive to work them out a different day when they're fresh? Why do it when it's already fatigued, when it already is lacking energy? And by the way, it's fatigued in a way that isn't maximally productive. It's productive a little bit, but not really. So you will have some degree of development in your triceps, but again, let's remember the child filling the vase, guys, okay? Because the participation of the triceps during the bench press is much less than it would be on a dedicated exercise, I don't know, say a tricep extension. Anyways, I'm digressing. Getting back to this idea of push-pull. You can ask yourself, well then if push-pull isn't a good method, well, what would be a better method? Well, for starters, we have to understand something called reciprocal intervention. Reciprocal intervention basically means that you cannot maximally engage two muscles that would move a particular limb in an opposite direction. So, the bicep moves my forearm up. The tricep moves that same lever in the other direction towards the antagonistic muscles. They oppose each other. You cannot load your bicep and simultaneously load your tricep. You cannot load your tricep and simultaneously load your bicep. It's impossible. I don't usually use that word, but in this case it is true. It is impossible. Because the central nervous system causes the non-working muscles to shut off completely. It does so by sending what's called a relaxation synapse to the muscle, telling it not to interfere. The muscle that's on the other side. This is actually how we're this is how we're coordinated, by the way. Apparently I can't walk and talk, but most of us can. So, this is how we're able to do things without getting in our own way. Well, except for clumsy people. Muscles don't impede the function of the opposing muscle. So imagine if you were trying to use both of your legs at the same time. You could be hopping or walking or skipping or doing some other ridiculous thing. And there are actually people like that who have these brain conditions. Again, off topic, sorry. Basically, it means that at all times we're engaging any muscle. Some other muscle is being shut off to allow that to happen without interference. Now, that same system has to be used, if it can be used, when we do weight training. So, when you're doing your biceps, your triceps completely shut off, which means it is fully recovering from a set you might have done from that tricep just before. Well, what a perfect opportunity. So, if you do bicep and tricep back and forth, supersetting them in the same workout, you're going to get the benefit of one of them recovering completely while you train the other one. So, say it takes you 1.5 minutes to complete a set of biceps, you go straight into triceps immediately after. Why? Because you don't have to sit there catching your breath and waiting for the muscle to recover, because it's isolated. It has not been used. It's been completely turned off and recovering. So if you bounce back and forth, there's no rest required. Now, this is a much better way to keep the muscles than it is to group them together according to what you think is best, or what your fucking retarded personal trainer, or what some bullshit some bro science said to you. If anybody tells you the squat, the deadlift, the bench press, overhead press, any heavy compound movement which causes your joints and your skeletal muscle to be disfigured and put out of place and constantly damaged, you go ahead and you tell them what you learned here today, that there's all these principles of physics related to components and all of these neurological components, and that they play into whether or not your exercise is truly loading your muscles as much as you think that it is. So, as we can see, we have now learned most of what you know is wrong. Sorry to hurt your feelings, not really. Alright guys, so that's everything. I got to cut the walk short because now I got to be on my way home. But I hope that you found the video helpful and informative. If you did, please apply the knowledge that you learned here. Now, all of these things and concepts I talk about in length, my articles on my website, www.castleandprogress.com. Also, I have the perfect resistance exercise flashcards biomechanically, we're talking about now, the actually perfect exercises. I also break down running, as well as life planning and many other things. News for you, my website's full of all this wonderful free information. It's all there for you to help yourself with. Please go there, help yourself, share this video with somebody if it helps you. Guys, I'm trying to grow my channel. A like, subscribe, really going to help. And again, if it was informative, share it with somebody. A lot more of these will be coming. Keep tuned, guys.